Hey friends, since there were requests for an explanation of what a triplet versus a one-hand is, not just in Zilling, but in all Western music notation, I thought I'd make a not super short, but hopefully efficient enough video that you can find the information that you need. I'm going to divide this into 3 chapters, so hopefully I can figure out on YouTube how to do that thing where you link to each section so you can skip ahead if you want to. But the first chapter is going to be what is a beat and what is a rhythm, in case no one's ever explained that to you. The second one is going to explain how do we subdivide a beat and what the word subdivide means. And the last section is the answer to your question, what's a triplet and what is like a one-hand, and how are they 2 different rhythms even though they each have 3 sounds apiece. Okay, so check down there. If I figured out how to do that little linking thing, I've never done it before, but I'm gonna try. You can skip ahead to where you want to have, what level of knowledge you want to have there. Before I start talking, I always want to make sure that I explain how I know what I know or why you should bother to listen to me, because there's a lot of stuff on the internet. We're not always right. Sometimes people learn something. But so I just want to explain, I was a professional musician for about a decade of my life. I have been training, taking music lessons and music training since I was 5. So about 40 years of dedicated music practice and learning. And then I was a public school music teacher for 12 years. So I've done this a lot. I've taught adults, I've taught little kids, I've taught big kids. I've taught and learned this stuff a lot, and I feel pretty comfortable sharing this with you. Hopefully something that one of the examples I give will resonate and make sense. And if not, send me questions, or I'm gonna at the end of the video direct you to you don't have to take my word for it, because there are some awesome rhythm and Zill classes coming up that I saw on the internet, and I wanna make sure you get to see them, and those studios get some shout outs as well. So moving into beat versus rhythm. So this is kind of kicking it back to kindergarten, 1st grade, maybe music education. And before I begin, I want to also acknowledge the fact that this is a complicated topic. So if you're like, I've never understood this, I feel I've never wanted to say I've never understood it, because everyone's like, oh yeah, this is this and this is that, and we're playing this, but I always feel dumb. Don't feel dumb. Because if you're my age, like mid 40s or a little bit older, you may not have learned this in public education music classes. Some teachers taught it, but until we kind of unified our curriculum when I was teaching, it was not expected to teach all of this in every class. So you may never have learned it formally, and that's completely okay. Also, even for professional and experienced musicians, hearing and feeling triplets versus a one-hand can get really dicey, and it can be hard to hear if it's not a natural thing for you. So if this is really confusing or has been your whole performance life or your whole dance life, completely fine. It's confusing for a lot of people, and it's okay. So don't feel like you have a secret shame, because some people are like, I didn't even want to ask because I feel dumb, like everybody knows this, but I don't. They don't. We're all just pretending together. Okay, so beat versus rhythm. Here we go. The beat is a steady pulse, or as I say, a heartbeat that runs through almost all music in the Western tradition. So stuff happening on the Western hemisphere, music, classical music, marches, nursery rhymes, things that we have grown up with and are familiar with. So almost every song you will hear has a steady beat. Now that beat can speed up or slow down if the song intentionally does that. But for at least a short to a long while, that beat will stay consistent, and you can anticipate when the beat comes next. So if you clap your hands to like a marching band coming down the street, or you're clapping along at a concert, or whatever you're doing, you know when that next pulse is coming probably. If you've tapped your toe to a song on the radio, that is the steady beat. So the steady beat is just a heartbeat. So for example, if I were to sing the ABCs, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, I have allergies. My voice sounds terrible. Sorry, bear with me. H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. So my words are moving at different speeds and doing different things, but I could tap my toe or clap my hands or pat my chest, and that steady beat is going to stay the same through the whole song. It's predictable, it's consistent, and even in silences, it's still persisting. So if I paused, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, the beat's still there, right? Even if there's not sound happening, there's still an anticipation and an expectation that this is going to keep going through the whole song. The rhythm is how we move the sound across that beat, or how we distribute it. Now by the sound, I don't mean like pitches, like high or low, or melody or anything like that. So if I took my voice out of it and I was just making music or sounds with my hands, this is the rhythm. So that is not necessarily predictable, right? If you had never heard the ABCs before and you saw me going, you might not know what's coming next. Like you wouldn't be able to finish that song because there's not a consistent pattern to the rhythm. If I put that rhythm with the beat, though, you can see how the rhythm kind of lines up with the beat. So I'm going to play the beat on my chest with this hand, and I'm going to play the rhythm on my chest with this hand. E, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. So this stayed the same. This was changing, but it was lined up with the beat. That's how beat and rhythm work together. We needed rhythm to make music interesting, because if we only ever had this, if somebody was just jamming out on a drum like this for 20 minutes, this is cool. It might lead you into some kind of flow state, but eventually we need more variety, and so that's why we have rhythm. Now, how do we divide rhythm in Western notation? This is chapter 2, so hopefully if you have not had this information given to you in school or in some kind of training, you're getting a real quick cook's tour of what this is now. How do we subdivide rhythm? If I were to draw, my marker's dying, this little rectangle here, and I said this is one beat. I haven't written upside down since I stopped teaching, like 8 years ago, so this is terrible, sorry. Hopefully it's backwards for you, but you get the idea. This is one beat, right? We can divide this up into a bunch of different segments, and then those sounds make rhythm. Just like if I handed you a jar full of coins and I said, hey, show me all the ways that you can use these coins to make $1, you could come up with 100, maybe even thousands of different combinations, if we had pennies, to make $1. Thankfully, in Western music, our brains can't process music divided into like 100 sounds on a beat, like if we had 100 pennies. So we have limited options. But you can still make dozens and dozens and dozens of different combinations of sound to lay over the beat. I'm going to talk about some main ones to help you understand. When I say the word subdivide or subdivision, I'm not talking about like your cul-de-sac or your neighborhood subdivision. Subdivision just means splitting the beat up into smaller parts to make rhythms. So the most common ones you probably have seen, at least in pictures, if not known what they mean, is a quarter note, which just means one sound on one beat. So if I said like, I can't think of an example right now. There's not really a lot of songs that are just one sound on one beat because they're kind of boring. But basically you're just going boom, it's matching the beat exactly. You get one sound that's laying right on top of the beat. A quarter note looks like this, if you haven't seen one. That's what a quarter note is. One sound on one beat. We take the next one, two sounds on one beat. These are called eighth notes. I'm sure you've probably seen these because if somebody makes like a music poster or a music design, these are the cutest. Everyone always uses that. So what we do is we split this beat up. One sound here, one sound here. So that's where we get like 1, 2, 1, 2. Sound A, sound B, sound A, sound B. That's at eighth note. Moving into what we're going to talk about in a bit, the triplets, you're going to stick 3 of those guys underneath a bar. That's 3 sounds on a beat. I'm running out of room here. And then the last one you need to know for the purposes of this is a 16th note, where we divide this up into 4 sounds on one beat. Like that. You'll probably have seen that as well. So these are 4 sounds on one beat, 16th notes. They're very quick comparatively, so it'd be like ba 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 ba. And then the triplets, which we'll get into in just a minute, eighth notes and quarter notes. Those are kind of the main ways we divide up a beat in Western notation. There's a bunch of other ways to do it, or a bunch of other ways to make up the beat, but those are what we need for right now. So now we're going to finally move on to what is a triplet versus what is a one-e-and, and why are they different, even though they do have 3 sounds, both of them. The best way I can describe this to adults, which is nice because 5-year-olds don't get this concept, so this is easier, is if I took like a minute, like a unit of time, a minute, which has 60 seconds, right? And I asked you, if I drew like a circle, and I asked you and pretend there's 60 little ticks all the way around here. So like a clock, but with all the little minute hands all the way around. And I said, divide a minute up into 3 equal chunks. You would immediately go, oh yeah, that would be like 20 minutes here, 20 minutes here, and 20 minutes here, right? So these are 3 completely even units of time or chunks of time. 20, 20, 20. I want you to think of that as a triplet. So 3 different chunks or 3 different sounds, each of them is equally long. Okay? I'm saying K like you're a 4th grader. Sorry, I've fallen into my teacher voice. That's a triplet. So remember, 3 equal parts. If I told you to take this clock and I want you to divide it into 4 parts, you'd give me 15-minute chunks, right? So we go from like 0 to 15, 15 to 30, 30 to 45, 45 to 60. That would be 16th notes. Now what we're doing with a 1E and this gets into like gets real deep in the weeds with, there's learning how to count music. There's systems called Kodai and Eastman, and if you remember those from school, you may have learned how to count these. If you've never heard of them, don't stress, it's not important. But when we say 1E we're using a system called the Kodai method, where we are taking a beat. We're starting by dividing it into 4 parts, like I showed you before with 16th notes, or a clock into 15-minute segments. But then we're saying we actually only want 3 sounds. So we are going to get rid of this guy here, this 4th, so hard to draw. This 4th 16th note, and we're gonna merge those 2 guys. So I took the 4th guy and I merged him into an 8th note. It's like when Mario jumps up and gets a mushroom and becomes Super Mario. We've taken a 16th note and we've gotten a mushroom and turned him into an 8th note. He doubled his size, okay? So this is what people, when we are talking about zills, say is a 1E. You don't have to know why we call it that. We call it that because of Western notation. I don't know if I just drew an and or not. 1E. With the clock metaphor, if you are a visual person, what we've done here is we are combining 2 of the 15-minute segments into a 30-minute segment. So we have 15, 15, and 30. The 30 is twice as long. It's twice as big. It gets, twice as much sound in rhythm. But we do have 3 separate parts. That's why people are calling it a triplet, because there are 3 sounds. But the difference between a triplet and a 1E is that the triplet is evenly divided across the beat, and the 1E or a 1, there's different options, are 2 short sounds and 1 longer sound divided over the beat. Now, before I've lost you, the best way to feel this, I used to teach a little workshop called Horses versus Hobbits. A 1E the one where we have 2 16th notes and 1 8th note, and they're not even, so this one's twice as long as this one, is like if you ever go see those little mechanical horses at the grocery store and they're playing the William Tell overture, da-da-dum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, bum-bum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-dum, that ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-bum. Those are 1E. So you hear 2 quick sounds and then 1 longer sound, but it's still only on 1 beat. Ba-ba-bum, 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 bum-bum, ba-ba-bum, 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 bum-bum, right? Horses. So also, like my husband pointed out last night, that Metallica uses jugga-dump, jugga-dump, jugga-dump in a lot of their songs. That da-da-dump. It's a driving feeling. It's very like you could march to it. It goes forward, but it kind of has like an end point to it. Ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-bum. Why I call the other one triplets Hobbits is because it is the triplet, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. It kind of feels like you're rolling down a hill or floating down a stream or dancing a jig, because it has this sort of rolling, never stopping quality to it, because it has 3 sounds evenly divided across the beat. The best song for that, over the river and through the woods, to grandmother's house we go. So the over the river and, those are triplets. So the difference is, if you want to hear the difference, ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-bum. These are 1E, 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 1E. Triplet, 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 triplet. Do you hear the difference? One's kind of starty-stoppy. The other one's very even. You could do it forever and just kind of vibe along with it. The other one we talked about was and a 1. Da-da-dum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. I just realized I was saying 1E and I meant and a 1. Sorry, with the William Tell overture, or the horse one, and a 1, and a 1. The other one, 1E ba-ba-bum, 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 ba-ba-bum. Metallica's 1E William Tell overture, da-da-dum, is and a 1. I know that gets really in the weeds. My point is, there's a starty-stoppy part to those versus the triplet, which is even and rolling and kind of never stops. So that was a lot. Honestly, these are like years and years or weeks and weeks or months and months of information I just threw at you, but hopefully that makes sense. On the zill, if you want to hear it, especially if you came out of or are currently in the Fat Chance style of zilling, What we do is an Annie and a 1 when we're zilling what we call threes, or sometimes people will call it triplets. And yes, there are 3 sounds on the beat, but they are not even, so they are not triplets. So just to really quickly blow your ears out with some zilling this morning. So when we're dancing, and a 1, and a 2, and a 3, triple, 1, da, ba, ba, ba. That is the and a 1, so that would be not a triplet. The triplet with zills, ba, 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 ba. It's even, there's no stopping and starting, nothing is faster than the other thing. So that is triplets versus 16th, groups of 16th notes in a nutshell, and that is why a triplet is not the same as a one and. Now, as I mentioned before, you don't have to take my word for it. Drake Von Trapp, I saw, is starting a course in zilling. I believe it's starting next week, actually, and I cannot say nice enough things about Drake as a performer and instructor. Every single workshop I've taken is amazing. I would highly recommend that. There are tons of other knowledgeable teachers out there. If you know ones who are teaching or currently running a musicianship series, please put them in the comments. Like, I put them in the comments, like anyone more than 2 people are going to watch this, but you know what I'm saying. Comment them and tag them so people can go visit them. Other amazing musicians that I work with, or that I've gotten to work with, Angie Never is an incredible musician. I highly recommend all of her workshops and classes, and I'm sure she'd be happy to do it private to break it down. She also can explain things in a less frantic way than I can. I'm trying to think. It's like I'm accepting my Oscar, and I can't remember who my family is to thank them. There's a bunch of them. After I publish this, I will put some more in the comments. But yeah, so triplets versus one-ends. If you have any questions, send me a message, and thanks for hanging in there for 17 freaking minutes.